There's another big-time NFL player who could be on the move this offseason, and this time, people are linking him to the Bengals. But how strong is that link really? Let's discuss. Hi again, Bengals fans. John Sheeran of A to Z Sports Cincinnati here, and it's always amusing to me whenever I see the NFL not wanting the NBA to have any moment in the sun by themselves, because a couple days after the Luka Doncic bombshell trade to the Los Angeles Lakers, you have not only Myles Garrett making his trade request public from the Cleveland Browns, but also you have Cooper Kupp announcing to the world that the Los Angeles Rams are willing to shop him this offseason. And we already discussed on this channel the implications of a potential Myles Garrett trade for the Bengals, but at the end of the day, there's no chance in hell the Browns will ever trade Myles Garrett to the Bengals or the Steelers or the Ravens for that matter. So when it comes to Cooper Kupp, at least there's a chance you could say that he ends up being a Bengal, even though I still think the chances are pretty much next to zero. Now, Bengals fans don't need a reminder about who Cooper Kupp is. Obviously, he capped off a 2021 season when he won the receiver triple crown with an MVP performance in the Super Bowl against none other than the Bengals. But it's been a long time since that historic season. And mind you, it was a historic season by all accounts, but ever since then, ever since he got paid a 3-year extension that he's only a year into now, he's been hurt a lot. He hasn't been his same productive self, and now he's on the other side of 30. Like, it has objectively been a bit sad seeing the decline of Cooper Kupp. In these last 3 seasons, he hasn't played more than 12 games, he hasn't had more than 812 yards, and he hasn't had more than 6 touchdowns in each of these seasons. And I think it makes sense to first start off listing off the reasons as to why the Bengals won't be trading for Cooper Kupp. And number one, as I'm sure a lot of you have guessed, Bengals don't make moves like this. Like, we made a whole video back in October about them trading for Khalil Herbert and giving up a 7th round pick as a monumental moment for this franchise. If you think for a second that they're going to trade like a high draft pick or 2 for Cooper Kupp at this stage in his career, you are sorely mistaken. This team has firmly made up its mind that they are not going to pay T. Higgins his actual market value despite him being 26 years old and a true fit in their offense. You think they're going to pay anywhere close to that for Cooper Kupp? I don't think so. But there are reasons as to why Kupp has been linked to the Bengals as potential suitors by NFL.com or Dana Orlovsky or by some Bengals fans, and I can definitely see why. I think the most obvious reason, even more so than his history against the Bengals, was the fact that Zach Taylor was one of Kupp's first coaches in the NFL. Taylor's time with the Rams did begin in 2017 as an assistant wide receivers coach just 2 months before Kupp was drafted, so obviously they have a prior working relationship together. And if we're going to continue down this path for the sake of, a fun hypothetical, I do think the Rams are going to be shopping Kupp at his lowest possible value, considering the fact that he hasn't had a good, healthy season in 3 years. There's even been a report from Ian Rappaport stating that the Rams would be willing to eat some of the money out of Kupp's contract, particularly that roster bonus that he's due in March, because his cap hit is nearly $30 million this year. Obviously, it wouldn't be that for an acquiring team because of the signing bonus proration, but it's still a lot of money for a receiver that's clearly in decline. Basically, the Rams are going to be more than willing to make this work with whatever team or teams end up wanting Kupp, because at the end of the day, he just isn't as valuable as he used to be for that offense. And when teams have a sense of desperation in trying to make a move like that, that is when my radar for the Bengals pops off, because they're not going to get into some type of a bidding war. They're not going to try to get the best compensation package in order to get someone that a team is clearly doing their best to get off their books. And I don't expect the return package to fall into that late day 3 range. I think that at the end of the day, this is still Cooper Kupp, and there's going to be some team that's willing to offer like a 3rd or a 4th round pick. But if the price gets to that 6th or 7th round range, which again, very unlikely, I think that is when the Bengals could get into the picture here. Mind you, the Bengals only have 6 picks in this upcoming draft class because they traded away their 7th round pick to acquire Khalil Herbert, so they don't have a ton of extra picks to end up offering in trades anyways. And all this is moot anyways if they do end up paying T. Higgins, which I still think is a pretty decent possibility at this point. They're obviously not going to pay T. Higgins and trade for Cooper Kupp. This would only be in the scenario where they would tag and trade T. Higgins, but before you get any ideas, they will not trade T. Higgins for Cooper Kupp. That is a definite loss for the Bengals in that case. No, at this point, we're talking about an alternate scenario where the Bengals don't tag T. Higgins. They allow him to leave in free agency and get a bag, and now they're left without a number 2 wide receiver. And then if the Rams end up being really, really desperate and no one wants Cooper Kupp and they're basically willing to just give him away, then the Bengals would be involved. So as you can tell, I'm not expecting Cooper Kupp to be a Cincinnati Bengal anytime soon. But at least compared to the Myles Garrett scenario, there is at least a small, very minuscule chance that this does end up happening. We've obviously seen crazier things in the NFL offseason. Hell, 2 years ago, the Bengals didn't expect to be in the market for Orlando Brown Jr. until he reached out to them and said, hey, would you be interested in signing me? Yeah, we can make this work. We still got weeks before any of this can happen anyways, because the NFL offseason doesn't really officially start until March. So we got a lot of stuff to cover up until then. And for everything pertaining to the Bengals, make sure to keep it locked in right here on A to Z Sports Cincinnati.